The primary focus of what we need to do in this video is get the RX7 as close to running as possible. Like I said in the last video, we could get this car running in honestly an hour if we really wanted to, but I want to do things right, and that means finishing the exhaust, because since owning this car, I've never actually fully had the exhaust on. Last time we ran it with an open downpipe, and it was obnoxiously loud. The entire bottom side of the car got covered in exhaust and soot and whatnot, and I want to fix that. But we need to make a tube that goes from the downpipe to the catback right here. It seems pretty easy. It's just gonna kind of come up and over this. It's almost a straight shot, and then we just have to kind of 90, or not even 90, but just like kind of 45 over to our downpipe here. So let me play with some tubes and some pipes. Got a nice variety of 45s, 90s, straights, everything hopefully here that we should need to build this exhaust. I hope I have enough straight. I feel like I do. If not, I've got a couple of these smaller pieces of straight. I like to go through my scrap bins first before just ordering more and more material, because then it just kind of stacks up. I end up with a whole bunch of scrap, and then if we can use that scrap, I'd rather use it and put it to good use versus just buying a whole bunch of new stuff. I'm spending way more time on this than I'd like to. I've got this section built out, but for connecting the mid pipe to the actual down pipe, I do not have the proper bends to be able to connect that up, and I don't have the experience, the knowledge to know how to cut the right angle cuts that I would need to make this connect up. So my buddy Jay, who runs Twisted Customs a couple shops down, is gonna help me in the next couple of days just connect up these pieces, and I also don't have enough gas to fully weld this up and back purge it all, so he's just gonna finish this up for me, but we have a pretty good start here. I do have one exhaust hanger built into it there to keep the exhaust kind of up, so that way it's not gonna sit down or fall down on this piece. So for now, we're just gonna move on to some other stuff that we can knock out, not hyper focus too much on this. So we're gonna go ahead and get our catch can installed. Now, I have this radium one, and I also have this beautiful improved racing one, and I really wanted to use this, but it's just too large for me to fit anywhere in the engine bay. As you guys can see the size difference between these two. This, I already have a car that we can put that on. That's gonna go into an upcoming project. It's just I don't have the real estate, unfortunately, to really fit it anywhere in this engine bay. 13Bs are very small engines up until you start putting everything else on them, and then they actually do get pretty large. So the radium can is gonna go right over here. It's small enough where it will fit, and we don't have to run any breather lines over exhaust or anything like that if we're to put it on that side. So catch can's gonna go over here on the driver's side. We need to install 2 riv nuts into 2 holes right there and right there. We can get that guy installed. And then the PCV system on this car, people were curious about it. Because it's a rotary, the only spot that you pull PCV from is the actual filler neck tube. So we went ahead and welded a -10 AN line onto our filler neck tube. We are going to powder coat this. This will sit right down there, and then this line will run over to our catch can, and then that is what collects any quote-unquote blow-by, similar to a piston engine. The side seals in the engine will have a little bit of blow-by. They will pressurize the oil fill tube, or the quote-unquote crankcase, and it'll pressurize this. So any blow-by will come out of that and go into our catch can over there. Little bit frustrating, not the end of the world, but a little bit. So I have to get a different oil fill tube, or I have to make one from scratch, something, because this is just not working with this excessive one. I was able to spin the oil fill tube in the iron a little bit over to try to get some clearance, and then our 10A and fitting hits the throttle body. So it's just not gonna work. And it's no fault, it's just mixed matching aftermarket parts. We have a Greddy elbow with an excessive oil fill tube and a turbulone manifold. They're just not playing nice together. So that sucks. I'm gonna have to see if I can order a flange so that way we can just build our own out of stainless. It won't be bad to build. It's a pretty easy design to have to do. It's just, you know, it's just one of those annoying things. I was able to make it work last time because this was a Dash 6 and I was able to snake it by that thing no problem. But with the Dash 10 fitting, it just doesn't fit. So, funny enough, the PCV system is not done yet, but it's no big deal. I did go ahead and get the fuel system all wrapped up under that manifold. So what I want to do is go grab some fuel. We'll grab our premix and get some fuel in here, test our fuel system, make sure we have no leaks. We can at least check that off the box. So we'll bring some premix with us. We're gonna put 1 ounce in per gallon. So we're just gonna grab 5 gallons for right now. So we'll put 5 ounces of premix into the thing, then put 5 gallons of fuel, then we can come back, put it in the RX7, test the fuel system, make sure there's no leaks, be all good there. I'm gonna cut the circuit breaker on, plug in the fuel pumps, key it a couple times to let it prime, make sure that no fuel's leaking out. I can hear fuel sloshing around in there. I can feel the fuel. Dope. Thank God. Thank God that is just good. Fuel system. Check that off the list. Woo! Done. Baby. Wow, something went half decent. Bingo. Bingo bongo. Bongo bingo, good to go, fuel system. Now since we're already doing some fuel stuff, it's a perfect opportunity to talk to you guys about our guys over at Techron and their complete fuel system cleaner. Now if you've got issues such as this, oh man, my fuel level sensor is stuck again. My gas gauge isn't reading. This, I'm getting way worse fuel economy than I normally get. Or this. I'm down on power, what is this? Complete fuel system cleaner can help you out. Easy enough to use, pop open your fuel tank, take the cap off, pop the cap off, and then stick it in. Now you want to do this when you have a full tank of fuel. Ideally when it's empty, put this in, then then fill up your fuel tank so that way it has an opportunity to actually mix everything together. But it's as easy as that. Once it's done, just take out the bottle, set it aside, put your fuel cap back on. We've been using Complete Fuel System Cleaner in all the cars for years, and it's always done us right. Another great benefit of using this is if you're somebody who likes to run E85 like myself, I tell you guys this all the time. If you use E85, once every 5 tanks or so, you should be swapping back to pump gas anyways to clean out the fuel system because that E85 is so corrosive. The fuel system cleaner can help break down any corrosion buildup that may be on any of your fuel components, injectors, fuel pump hangers, anything like that to help keep things operating as they should. Whenever we do swap from E85 back to pump gas, I always run a tank of this Complete Fuel System Cleaner through the car just to make sure that everything is staying clean, because we want it clean. Complete Fuel System Cleaner can help restore any of that lost horsepower that you may have once had. It will also help restore any of that lost miles per gallon that your vehicle may have had prior and may have disappeared due to a dirty fuel system. If Complete Fuel System Cleaner is something that you guys are interested in, down below in the description there will be a link over to Techron's website. Feel free to check it out if you want. They've got all the info you could ever imagine on it, and you can pick that stuff up at pretty much any of your local auto parts stores. So, let's get back to this RX7. So we have a little bit of wiring to do down in the kick panel down there. So I just want to knock that out. We got to jump the security relay, jump the clutch switch, and then do a ground wire that got broken from the steering column to the dash bar. Then we can actually put on the steering column pieces. So more fun wiring. There's so much wiring on this car. The doors took me forever. You guys, I did not film that intentionally because that just took so long. I had to troubleshoot some electrical issues with the cooling fans. They just were not cooperating with anything that I would do. So I tried literally everything I could think of. There's also a couple other small electrical issues like the fuel level sensor working and some other stuff that we got to get around to fixing because we kind of need this stuff working. I'm trying to be a bit methodical here when going through this because there are some issues that we are facing at the moment, and of course none of those and it's all just like weird electrical problems that I'm kind of just dealing with at the moment. And one of them being the fuel level sensor isn't reading and the low fuel light is on. So there's obviously something going on there. And I read a couple forums, other people have had this issue with the radiant hangers, and it's such a tight fit to get this thing in that it sounds like people have kind of rubbed the wiring and shorted out the sensors. Knowing that it's gotta be, because this looks like it's gotta come like straight up and out. That's not gonna happen. Dude, come on, there we go. Oh yeah, dude, it's a tight fucking fit. I bet you the wires, they get all screwy. What's that? We go ground and level. We have continuity, which we shouldn't. Nope, nope, nope. But for some reason, fuel level and ground are shorting. So I'm assuming that on the bottom side of this top hat, they're touching. So that sucks. That's gonna suck. I have to take this whole assembly apart. Only have continuity up here. Why? Where's that ground strap? Should be fixed now. The issue we were having is this ground wire was actually grounding out to the fuel level wire, and I'm guess shorting out everything because this is the ground for all the sensors. So because it was doing that, it wasn't working. Obviously nothing was working because the ground was shorting out to fuel level and combining it just didn't work. So should be able to put this back in. Should be good to go on this. Gonna be a pain in the butt, but let me fight with this thing, get it back in, be done with it, and then we can move on to our next electrical problem because there's unfortunately quite a bit. Was not a fun one to do. Taking out that radium hanger out of that fuel tank absolutely sucks, but our fuel level is working and it's reading accurately. I've got about 6 gallons in there, which comes out to around 1/3 of a tank. So that puts us right fairly accurate. I feel like once I put more fuel in there, it'll probably update, but fuel level sensor works. That's one electrical problem taken care of. The next is the cooling fans. I've been on and off playing with this for a little while now, and I'm pretty sure I've got the problem narrowed down, and this might sound confusing, but let me kind of walk you through this. A traditional relay setup will use a switched 12-volt source to power whatever the relay is powering, and in our case it's the fans, and that's how these relays work. They are powered with, or they're activated through a 12-volt source. But the way that Haltech uses the ECU to control relays is through a DPO, and a DPO is a switched ground. Looking at this as an example, this is how Haltech wires up relays. So you've got constant 12, constant 12. Both of these go straight to the battery, okay? You've got pin 87 here, which goes out to the fuel pump. That's what sends power to the fuel pump. Then you've got pin 85 here, which is the ground. Now, pin 85 is our ground, but that ground needs to go to the ECU to be the DPO, because the DPO is a switch ground to activate this whole thing. Now in our, here's where we run into troubles. On this, I tucked it all down here. On this harness here from Rywire, or this is the factory harness. So this green and black is actually coming from the ECU. So that is our DPO right there. We've got this black and orange, which are black and yellow, which is the ground, and then we've got these two constant 12 volts from the battery. So you can see the problem here is we have this ground, which is causing these relays to stay on. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to rewire this to make it work. I'm going to try, but I think the actual solution to fixing this is going to be wiring up another relay box, which it does suck, but I think that's the only way to actually get these to work properly. Here's what we're going to do. I am getting rid of the stock fans. We're not going to use them. I just bought a aftermarket radiator shroud with fans. We're going to just lop off that fan harness. Gonzo. No matter what I do, no matter what, the fans will not listen to me. They will turn on when the car's off. They will turn on when I tell them not to turn on. They will not turn on when I try to tell them to turn on. These fans, they're dual speed fans, and they're controlled with 4 different relays. But the problem is the relays aren't listening, even when I wire up the relay properly. Like, I have gone in here, depinned all of these, and wired the relay as it should. Per Haltech's setup, and the setup that I use for everything when powering stuff with the DPO, they will not listen. They will turn on when they're not supposed to turn on. They will not turn off when I tell them to turn off. They will not turn off when the key is out of the ignition. So we are just getting rid of it. I will just order another little fuse box for the engine bay, and we will power the fans off of that fuse box. I am tired of dealing with this issue. It has been an issue since the car has originally gone back together. I don't know if it was an issue before I even had the car. The car originally with this FD, not the owner before me, because he bought it from the other dude blown up, but before him, the car overheated. Was it a fan problem? Did the fans not cooperate? Did the fans not supposed to turn on when they were supposed to turn on? Did they? I don't know. I don't have the confidence. I don't trust these fans, and they just won't work. End of story. We're getting rid of them. We're going with an aftermarket fan setup. Typically, I try to use OEM fan setups when I can, because OEM fans are pretty good, but in this instance, it's just not working. And normally I would just wire those fans up, but they're dual speed fans, and it's more complex to wire those up than it should be. So off with its head. Gonzo. Not gonna worry about it right now. But because of that, this bracket can now just vominos, and all of these wires, this gigantic bundle of wires, can all just get cut off. I'm not gonna cut them off quite yet, but I am gonna cut those off. Boost controller, we will probably relocate that now that I do not need that bracket right there anymore, so we'll find a new home for the boost controller. But aside from that, that should take care of all the wiring issues. Once the fans are fixed, we should be solid on wiring. Fuel level works, low fuel gauge works, all that works now. What we can do is go ahead and toss on our low pressure hydraulic line for the rack up to the reservoir. And once we actually have that line on, we can actually fill that thing up with fluid and start bleeding the steering rack. That's just gonna be turning the wheels left, right, left, right, left, right, just to try to burp some air out of there. So let's get that knocked out. One less thing that we're gonna have to do before startup, and it's one last thing we gotta do before we go drive this thing. So let's get this line in. I will say these are hydraulic lines that I had made at a shop. They are actually crimped on. With the low pressure side like this, we do have to run an adapter fitting because the rack side is smaller than the reservoir side. I don't know why, but this would not fit on the reservoir at all. And the only solution, unfortunately, is to run an adapter. It's not the end of the world. Gets the job done. Doesn't look bad. It's nice that they're all actual hydraulic lines. So let's get our hydraulic system done. So, fitting. When it comes to power steering fluid, you're gonna use any ATF really. If you have some old ATF, well not old, like used old, but if you have some ATF laying around, feel free to use that. I'm using Subaru ATF. Now when it comes to bleeding the steering system, what you're gonna do is turn the steering wheels left, right, left, right, left, right in a slow manner from lock to lock. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna push any air that is in the lines up into the reservoir and out and displace that with more fluid. We still have a ways to go on this, but this is a good start. I need to repair this wheel speed sensor and relocate it. The problem is with the single turbo setup on the RX7, the turbo sits so close to the frame rail that it actually melted the wheel speed sensor. So I cut out the melty chunk section. These are not shielded wires as I'm looking at them, so we should be able to easily repair this harness. I will strip back some of the sheathing. We can get this plugged in and reroute it in a way that is not going to get melted by the turbo. And while we're in here, let's throw on the brake calipers because I have decided we're just gonna keep them red. I think the red will pop nicely with the white, and it'll be a nice little accent of color. Plus, it saves me from having to take them back apart. And they're brand new still, so I'm not sweating it. Just so you guys can see, our wheel speed sensor is now actually relocated right there. Comes down around everything else and then goes to the hub here. I actually really like these red calipers against the white. I think the red on white actually looks way better than I thought I would, and I think it makes for a nice accent for the brakes. Maybe I'm just telling that myself because I don't want to go through the hassle of having to repowder coat these. You know, there's a couple things. A, I actually like the red on the white. Let's just get that out of the way first. But B, I don't want to have to try to track down a rebuild kit for some 10-year-old StopTech calipers. Knowing my luck, StopTech will be like, oh yeah, we made some changes. We don't have a rebuild kit for it. You might be able to find parts for it here or there. I just want to mess with it. The red looks good, especially against the white. I think it's a nice pop of color in there. We're gonna leave it. So now that we have more on the car, I wanna go ahead and get this wing on. We are gonna put some foam around the bottom side of it just to help protect it against the actual chassis itself as we bolt it down. But before we do any of that, we gotta locate this. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just kind of make a template here. Transfer this template over to the key. Kind of like that. Poke, poke. Just need that edge right there mainly, but go ahead and take the whole shebang here. I should be able to just peel this up, take it over the hatch, match that line up with the body, and then that'll tell us where our two holes are. Easy enough. Easy way to do a wing. Our wing is temporarily mounted on. I say temporarily because I am gonna end up taking the wing back off when we go to wet sand everything, but it's on there. There's 2 screws on each side, and then when we permanently install this, it'll be 3M all the way across the rest of it, so that way this thing will stay down. Guys next door are working on the wing blade and the end caps for it, so that should be wrapped up soon. Next up, I just got word that our radiator shipped out, so I want to go ahead and build out the fuse box, so that way in the next video, when we get that radiator or those fans and shroud in, we can just start installing everything, wiring it up, and be good to go there. So let's make a fuse box for this thing to cover the fan. I remember when I used to be petrified of wiring, and now, funny enough, it's one of my favorite things to do. I know these fuse boxes look overly complex to make, but I promise, if you have the diagram in front of you and you know what wire goes to each pin on that relay, it is so much easier. If it's something you're gonna be doing, just print off a diagram of the relay and you should be able to do it, no problem. We have our fan relay harness made up here. So we've got 2 15-amp fuses here. The fans that we're using don't draw more than 15 amps on startup and then about 7.5 amps while running. So 2 15-amp fuses, 2 30-amp relays, and then this wiring is 16 gauge. 16 gauge is more than enough to be able to cover what we need. Originally, I had made this out of 10 gauge and it was just way too big. There was absolutely no need to run all the wires in 10 gauge. So these 4 wires here coming out, the 2 red ones are the positive for the fans. These blacks are gonna go to a chassis ground or battery ground. I haven't figured that out yet. That's why I left a whole bunch of length on there. The 4 red ones right there are going to go to the battery or a positive terminal. And then these 2 small ones are the DPO. Now I wired them as 2 individual DPOs, so that way if we wanted to control the fans separately, we could, to have one turn on at one temperature and the other turn on at the other temperature, or at another temperature, or we could just plug them in together, and then that way the fans will come on together. So I just made it so that way we've got options. Let's get some oil in this engine and try to kick this thing over just to make sure that it will turn over, because I haven't even tried to turn turn it over yet because obviously there's been no oil in it. Let's put some oil in this thing. Let's try turning it over. Make sure that it will turn over so that way when it does come time to start this thing up, we're not chasing wiring to try to figure out why the car won't turn over like we did last time. Fuck yeah! She wants it. She wants it. That's what we're stopping, and that's all I've got for you guys on this one because that's literally all I can do up until we get the rest of our stuff in to get this thing started. So, like I said, there's really not much left to do. We need to make vacuum lines, which we're gonna be using Hardline. Our guys over at JDC Customs, who are a new partner with us, sent over a ton of titanium 1/4-inch line. So we're gonna do all of our vacuum lines out of Hardline titanium, which I think will be a lot easier to do with the 1/4-inch than it was the 1/2-inch like I was trying to do before, because the 1/2-inch absolutely kicked my butt. So radiator fans, vacuum lines. Like the video, you know what to do. Go and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, side, and whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.